posting a rate that's, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4% lower than the others, then you go, yoo-hoo, I get a...
Yeah, but they're posting one that's 0.2, 0.3 higher than the others.
And then charging you
and then charging you the 1%.
Yeah, and asking you to put more down than most people.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm going to jump right into the show.
Your firstborn son.
Yeah, we'll leave our London issues at the door.
Where they belong.
Where they belong, that's right. I'm Dylan, this is Jen, this is Cease. Welcome to the Real Estate Morning Show. We're back. We've got a few topics for you today. We want to talk about the recently released market stats for the month of March. We want to talk about appraisals, and we want to talk about some changes that are coming to that AREA is proposing to how realtors conduct themselves. There's a long list, but we've got one in particular that we want to talk about.
Yes, we do.
In terms of regulations. Anyways, so I mean, we've been busy.
Yeah.
It's been a very busy couple of weeks. We ended March really strong, and I was really excited to sit down today and see March sales numbers through the roof. Look at the market report and see how well March has done. And to my dismay, it's the same as what it was last year.
Yeah, that's so weird.
Yeah,
that's
we didn't.
Strange.
It felt that it was going to be much more. Now we're up 2,000 units from last month.
Yeah, from February.
But we're equal to what we were in March of 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems wrong.
It does seem wrong.
Like it's just based on the amount of activity that's happening compared to last year. That number doesn't seem right to me. Like I keep wanting to make you double check it, and I know it's right, but I just like that.
And I did double check it because we were so
thrown by it.
Yeah, so thrown.
Yeah.
And what does happen sometimes is the way that offers are structured. There's conditional periods. So if you sold a home at the end of March, and then the conditions weren't removed until, say, April 3rd, 4th, or 5th because of banking days and whatnot, the market report, the stats are already out. That sale isn't going to show as a done deal, right? So the next month or month after, that report automatically gets updated, and we'll see those sales numbers change.
Yes.
So every time when I go into my my document here where I keep all the stats as well and update them, when I compare March this year to what I have in there March last year, because every monthly report, they always compare the previous year. And it's different than the month that I put in because things have changed. So now in a down market, which we saw a little bit last year, that number corrected downwards.
Right, because deals didn't close.
Exactly. Right. We were at, let me just find the right number here. So March 2018 originally was 7,228 sales, but now March 2018 shows 7,188 sales. So like I think it's a 40 sale difference. So those are deals that either didn't close. Yes. Well, I mean, there were ultimately deals that didn't close or that fell through at some point because it would have been reported as a firm sale, and then somewhere along the ways it didn't stay a firm sale in the system, and it corrected backwards.
Yeah, which makes sense. So are you thinking that potentially we're going to see that March number jump up as those final deals firm up?
That's my hope, yeah.
How many do you think there's going to be?
Mr. Optimistic.
I'm hoping on at least 40. 40 would be fantastic.
At least.
Yeah, I mean, that would put us up over what we were last year, and that'd be enough for me, because we're 7,188 was last year's, and this year we're 7,187. So we're one sale short of matching last March. Yeah. And obviously that's not even close enough. I wanted us to see, I would like, at least a few hundred. I would have been happy with like 300-400 additional sales.
Yeah. So where do you think then, like, what might have failed? We think that the condo market is still strong and the condo unit sales are still strong. Is it still the detached that
I'm assuming it's still the detached. Short? Yeah, I haven't had a full chance. Like I've looked at the report, but I haven't been able to compare it to last year's numbers to see where the actual deficiency was.
Yeah.
But I got to assume it's still the detached market outside of the city that is.
Yeah, that makes the most sense. But you got to wonder too, like. We know in York region specifically that there's way more movement than there was, right?
Yeah.
Just based on our level of activity, plus what's going on in the
colleagues,
offices, and the guys
properties our buyers are looking at
are in act. They're doing more deals. Like there's a lot going on, right? Yeah. So I wonder if there is a specific area potentially that just declined more, and it's just balancing those numbers out. When really, if we look specifically at one pocket, would there be more growth?
For example, did we see a pause in the condo growth in the city?
Right.
Like it's been going so well for so long. Did we see a little bit of a pushback from the buyers and say, hey, prices got a little too much too quick there, we're
Yeah.
going to pause for a second.
Yeah, or even, if you look at Durham region with the
Durham.
plant getting shut down and
Yeah,
stuff,
very
did
true.
that have a big impact on that Whitby, Oshawa,
Yeah, that's a very good
Ajax
point.
neighborhood? Because they were doing really well,
Yeah.
right? They were moving really high.
They
So
were.
if they've shifted,
That could change a
that
lot of
could be
people's
a
plans,
big-
right?
that
People
could be
that
a
were
big
getting ready to
change.
make that move
Right.
and now are like, okay, let's hold
Yeah.
off, see what's going on with our family income and stuff like that.
exactly. So potentially,
That's a very good point. I almost forgot about that.
Yeah,
That's,
it's just a thought, right? Because it doesn't line up with what we're seeing.
the condo market is still strong, everybody. It's Durham, don't worry.
It's not us.
It's not us.
You take a look at Durham, York, or Peel, or
yeah.
could it be Peel region that stalled a little
That's
bit
the
with
other
the
thing,
city of
too.
Mississauga looking
Yeah.
for their
Yeah.
exit?
Yeah, they're like,
Yep.
hold on.
Strategy, right?
We don't want
I
to be a
don't
part of
know.
this anymore.
Yeah. There's
We'll
lots of
see.
things it could be. So it'd be curious. I know we're going to dig a little deeper and look at those stats
Yeah,
more
we'll break those down
area
over the
by
coming
area over the coming kind of week or 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it'll be cool to track it and see where the declines are
Where we're
happening,
at.
right? Yeah.
March listings are obviously up. New listings are up over February, but they're still down compared to last year. Last year we hit 14,866. This year we hit 13,996. So a little bit less inventory coming out, and that's something that we talked about a little bit earlier.
Right, because we're seeing multiple offers in some instances, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about the supply being lowered, creating the demand, but it's only certain properties, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost as if it's like if you're that good property that priced well, shows well, you're going to get multiple people coming to you because there aren't a bunch of options that match,
Yeah.
right? But if you're just somewhere in the middle, you're probably going to be sitting at 30 days like everyone else.
Perfect
right?
example, our one that we just sold in Newmarket. We priced it right. We looked great for our product. We still had a little pushback from buyers that were coming in because of what their expectations are. But we sold at a great price in a quick amount of time versus there's 10 others that are still out there, 80, 90 days on their fourth try of trying to sell, and it's because they're overpriced, right? So that same issue still exists with buyers saying, hey, I'm only willing to pay this much. These are my new lending challenges that I'm going through. This is what I think value is in the neighborhood with the adjustment. And sellers are like, no, but we missed the days where we were getting all this money. Give us all that money.
Remember 2 years ago when we got an extra 150?
Yeah, where's that money?
I still want that. Yeah.
But and I think too in York region, there has been a flurry of buyer activity. There's been many more people out and about looking. Double bookings on many of our showing appointments,
big time,
right?
yeah.
So we've got sellers that have become very optimistic about what the results are going to be. So we've seen offer dates, but we've also seen offer dates fail,
Right.
and new prices then be posted on properties that were listed below the million mark that are now over the million mark. So if they had been successful, if they had been realistic, we would have had more of those unit sales.
And it's one of
So
those
those guys are
things-
recycling through again.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too, right? People put an offer date, but then they list at a high price. It's like, well, those strategies don't really go together, right? They're two different approaches. You can't.
And it's amazing that still happens.
I know.
It's amazing that it still
That's a
happens.
whole other conversation.
Yeah. So we'll put the pin in the market stats for now because I think what we'll do is we'll release stuff over our social media like our Instagram and Facebook of shorter videos where you just get to see specific areas as we break it down. So you don't need to hear us talk on and on about what we think about the
we
market
don't.
in this moment.
Yeah.
The next thing I want to talk about is appraisals.
Yeah.
Appraisals obviously very common on every house. A lot has changed with appraisals in the last 10 years, I would say, even in the last few years. With the change in the market, we see appraisals become much more of an issue.
Yes.
Like in the last couple of years, I'd say really.
Yep.
Even before that, as the prices were going up, we had more issues with appraisals, with the bank being like, "Well, you just paid a lot of money for that house.
Yeah.
Is this something that we're willing to lend
especially
on?"
the high-end homes, right, where they were selling for a lot of money, and the lending, the numbers just weren't making sense, and then you were left with that big gap, right?
And so an appraisal is required from your lender. It's separate to the deal. Most deals aren't always conditional on appraisal. That is changing, but historically they weren't always conditional on appraisal. Specifically in the GTA, I remember you said that it was something that was everything was conditional on appraisals out Niagara Way.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. And so your lender will want to make sure that the money that they're lending you, that the value of the property is there so that they're not lending you money on something that doesn't have that value if they ever need to take it back from you. They want to make sure that they can protect their investment.
Yeah, I mean, there's two distinct issues here. It's your condition on finance. Are you qualified as a borrower to be lent that money? And then does the house qualify as the appraisal?
As the appraisal.
Right, so.
And so I remember when I first started, and appraisals would happen almost like the last 3 weeks before closing.
Yes.
And something had come up on one of the deals, and it was looking tight for the appraisal. And I remember asking, like, wait a minute, if it's so important that, that the bank is willing to do this, why is the appraisal so late in the process? Why didn't the bank do this, like, from the get-go?
Right.
Because that's when we needed to know if there was going to be an issue or not. Give the buyer time to either come up with money or find a remedy from the seller or whatever the solution may be in that moment.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking it was so backwards. And at the time, you said, well, that's kind of always the way that they've done it.
Yeah.
That's
how the banks do.
We used to also just shake hands and exchange $1, and close our $50,000 deal.
Yeah, and I mean, at the time, it wasn't on you when the bank
Yeah.
sent out their appraiser. That's the lender, and that was their policy.
That's how they do
appraisal and home purchase generally matched until there was a change in exponential growth in the marketplace,
or downturn, or whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
And so then when we saw bidding wars and that happening and the home prices escalating so quickly, we started to see appraisals becoming a bigger issue. And even then, when we were moving our financing and home inspection conditions, we were still having an issue where the deal wasn't conditional on appraisal. If it didn't appraise, you had an issue.
Yeah.
You tried to get your appraiser out as early as you could in the process, but it definitely wasn't before you put in your offer.
No, it was not. And it is still really a challenge to have your lender supplied the appraiser within your 5-day conditional time frame. And it's
do want to get to that.
And it's difficult to have your seller wait for 7 business days or 8 or 9 business days to have that happen.
Exactly. So back to along the progression, even then, you weren't protecting yourself fully by having that appraisal done beforehand because you would lose the house. That was just as if you weren't protecting yourself fully by having your home inspection and financing condition because you would lose the house.
Right.
So what would happen is we would consult with our buyers, show them all the comparables, and explain the appraisal process very clearly and say, hey, these are the comparables that I'm looking at. This is your range on what you should be able to pay. Anything you want to pay above this, if that's what it means for you to get the house, that's on you because we can't guarantee that the bank's going to lend you the money above this amount that I'm saying right here. Yeah. This is kind of the range on what appraisal should be. And there was always still a little bit of a roll of the dice because you didn't know who the appraiser was going to be and how he or she was going to look at the value of the property.
Yeah, and then the other shift that's happened is that there was a time when banks had particular appraisers that worked within the bank. So they had someone that they trusted, that they knew did a good job, that they went to with their appraisals, and that those few people kind of were their go-to guys. And then that system got changed to a centralized appraisal system where everyone's name is basically in like a database, and it's just done by an appraisal submission comes in and you get matched, and there's no control over who the appraiser is, right? So there's that level of experience or whatever that might be. There's no control.
Yeah, you could get somebody exactly.
Yeah.
I had the same discussion with an appraiser, not an appraiser, but we had this discussion about an appraisal that came in. And I was like, well, does he know that this street typically always sells less, or this one always typically sells more? Because if you just look on your computer and you look at the same type of house, same matching conditions, but don't take into account the exact street or what the neighborhood might bring, you'd be like, oh, that one's really overpaid for.
Yeah.
Because they don't know that street always sells more.
Yeah,
right?
there's definitely, at least in my opinion, there's a legitimate concern around that when it comes to appraisals, and sometimes you do get a number back that doesn't make any sense, right? And I know that there's stuff that as agents we can kind of do to help remedy that, but it's limited.
It is limited, yeah.
It's very challenging.
You can't really totally influence them. If they're open to a little bit of coaching where you say, hey, look at these 2 properties.
Yeah.
There are things that you can do to help alter
send the comparable sales that show hey, this is how I came up with the number. Not sure what the appraiser got, but this is
exactly, and that's no guarantee because appraisals do come back short. So I mean, there's no one set way to say, hey, don't worry, we got this. We're going to show them why this is value and it'll work, right?
Well, and I think that too, appraisers are just as concerned about their signature on their report. They've got to answer to the lender.
Right.
The lenders tighten the screws on how and who they're lending. And appraisers have got to really be extremely conscientious of that.
So
they're not being generous.
Just to jump in, one of the things that we're trying to do now is get that appraiser out first thing in your financing period. But 5 days isn't necessarily enough because one, you can't control them. You try to get it out to the bank, or hopefully it's through your mortgage broker and you've had this discussion beforehand and prepared them, but then it's a 24 to 48 hour turnaround, and depending on who the lender is, you either have to pay to expedite that, and there's still no guarantee.
The time frames are challenging the thing that always baffles me about it is the banks know when they need an appraisal, but then they still wait till like 2 days before the condition is due to order the appraisal.
Yeah.
And then the minute that happens, you need an extension on that condition because you're not getting it back in time.
Yeah, and then your buyer risks losing the house. If the seller says like, hey, I feel like you're dragging your feet, I had better interest before, I might just go back out on the market.
Yeah.
Right?
Which can
Not
happen.
usually the best response for them because an appraiser issue is going to be on your house no matter what.
Yeah.
But
that's why we're starting to see the condition now too, right? That there's your financing condition, and now there's
Subject
a
to
second
appraisal.
condition subject to
Subject to
appraisal
appraisal.
being completed and like all
Yeah.
that, right? So I think that's adding a little level of security to at least the buyer side of things. For the seller, it's always the same. There's always fear around that appraisal, right? Just because we have no control over
Exactly.
it.
Something's
Essentially,
completely under your control.
it's completely out of your control. But
maybe a 7-day conditional period is something that we need to work towards so that you've got time to do all of that.
I think that's going to be.
I think we're getting there.
That we are getting there. I think that the days of even a 30-day close. I mean, it takes now so long for the lenders to give instructions. For that mortgage. A lot of mortgage arrangements are still 6 weeks. They're 5 and 6 weeks. Under 4 weeks is a tough go.
It's really tough.
Yeah.
Whereas before we definitely got those done.
Oh,
yeah,
gosh,
no problem.
There was
no
no
problem.
issue. But I remember, going back before the 2014, 15, 16 craziness of it all, that financing conditions were 7 days. Yeah. That was standard, right?
Yeah.
It only got 5 days, and that
it did shorten down
when everything started to get a lot more aggressive, and then we got to the there's no conditions phase of things, and I feel like now we're just going back in the other direction. We went back to 5 days, and now we are leaning to 7 pretty heavily because 5 isn't enough.
5 days is not enough time.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. We solved the industry's problems
We're
right
just
there.
gonna send the podcast to the banks.
Yeah.
Like, guys, we solved your problem.
The banks and every listing agent so that they know, hey guys, it's coming in 7 days.
Yeah.
Oh, you need 7 days? Yeah, I need 7 days.
That's the new protocol.
Yeah. And you're on the other side too. You've been on the listing side. You're like, hey, you need to tighten that up. That window is way too big. Like, let's shorten this down.
Exactly.
There was a time, but I feel like now you just can't. Even on the listing side that. Putting that pressure on the banks don't care, right? They just...
And then you're going to put the pressure on the clients to understand why you need an extension when the time comes. And nobody likes feeling things change when you've got like a set plan. We kind of know that they're coming, and you can, if you prepare them, then it's okay. But even then, they're still like, oh, we need to extend. Like, should we be extending?
Yeah, or there's that fear around, well, why can't the buyer get lending? Why are we extending? Are they going to be able to buy
without
the house
the full understanding?
Without understanding it, exactly.
Yeah, sellers certainly have to be prepped for it.
Yeah, exactly. The more preparation for both sides, I think, the better. So our final topic for today is the changes that AREA is proposing. They have a few in regards to the Real Estate Business and Brokers Act. The main one that we want to discuss today is the removal of bully offers.
Yeah, that's right.
Which I think, spoilers, we all kind of agree is a good thing.
Yeah, makes sense, right? It makes it easier for sure.
Yeah, and so the way that bully offers came about first started with offer dates. As the market got busier, we'd set offer dates so that everybody had a chance to come see the home. It worked great for the sellers because you inspired competition. But also for buyers, it worked as well because, arguably, but when homes were selling literally the day they were going out, a lot of buyers, homes were selling before they could even see the house, right? So they served both sides, even though there's struggles on both sides. And then what would happen was buyers, instead of wanting to compete against 10 other buyers on an offer date, they would submit their offer early, that they called a bully offer. And the reason it was a bully offer is because it was such a good offer that you would make the seller want to accept it before waiting for the competition they were going to see on their offer
Burn
date.
the hand rather than
Exactly. But this brings a lot of challenges, and we'll start out. You've been looking into this, so I'll let you explain it. But we'll go over all those challenges and why we don't think that they need to be around anymore.
Yeah, for sure. So the main challenge is obviously that the rules when it comes to having an offer date, at least with the Toronto Real Estate Board specifically, and I'm sure other boards as well, is that if somebody does register an offer prior to the offer date, everybody that shows it has to be notified.
Or has booked a showing.
Has to be notified that this offer is now on the table and given an opportunity to put something together and bring this offer forward, right? What ends up happening a lot of the time is that you get like a 2-hour window between when this offer gets registered and when it's getting presented. So it's doesn't really give
It's not
anyone
practical.
It's not practical.
It's not fair, right? You're
Yeah.
asking your buyers then to kind of just put something on paper without doing their due diligence really on the property itself. So it creates a situation where even though it's within the rules, there's no transparency, and you're putting the buyers into a position where they're kind of blindly going forward and potentially spending more than they wanted to, not getting a home inspection, potentially putting in an offer without financing, because now they're competing with what they know is an aggressive offer, which isn't what they would have intended to do in the first place, right?
And quicker than what they were originally prepared to do it. If they're doing this on a Thursday when they would have had until the set date of Tuesday to prepare that, to have their pre-home inspection and to submit to the lender.
Exactly, and to get their ducks
so
in a row.
So now they get rushed.
They get frantic, they get rushed, they get emotional. There's a lot of pressure in that situation. For us, it's very hard to do our job at a high level because we're being told you've got an hour to get me this offer. And then the other argument is that on the flip side, on the seller side even, that it's not really fair to the sellers, which I hadn't really thought about before, but I think it's actually a good point.
That's a good point, yeah.
Because the sellers have a set plan in place too, and when those offers come in, again, going back to that really tight timeline that they usually have, it forces the seller to be put into a bit of a pressure cooker situation. It bullies them, right? Yeah, exactly.
The buyer is the early bird, and the seller gets bullied.
That's a bit of a dad joke right there. But anyway, it puts them into a pressure situation, right? And then they're potentially forced to make a decision that they aren't prepared to make or aren't ready to make, and that it's really not fair to them either, that nobody wins except for potentially this one buyer.
That one buyer, yeah.
And then a lot of the time, quite frankly, I'm sure you guys have experienced this too, you get this bully offer or preemptive offer, right? And it's not any good.
Yeah.
Like it's really low.
It throws everybody off.
And then you've got all these other people who you've now rushed to get to you so that they don't miss their opportunity. And they're competing against an offer that nobody should have come to the table with in the first place, right? So it's just really, it creates a lot of stress around a situation that could be very, very organized, very straightforward and clear for everybody.
Yeah. Well, and also then I think too, it has to be clarified. Which is it going to be? Are you going to have an offer date, or are you going to deal with marketing the property with a first come, first serve? Right? Whoever submits the offer first is the offer that the seller deals with. But the listing agents have to come along with this, and they have to decide in their strategy, their consultation with their seller, how are they going to do it? And if they set an offer date, then they've got to, perhaps eliminate that seller will entertain a preemptive offer,
right? With no notice.
With no notice.
Which you can't do.
Which you can't do because our TREB rules say that we have to give notice, as you had said. Yeah. But that's part of the stimulation of that bullies that the listing agent's actually inviting.
Yeah, by saying that we have the option to look at it,
you're
encouraging the bully to come.
So
You're like, hey, bring it to us.
Yeah.
We're ready.
To me, that means that listing agent is not quite sure what's going to happen for their seller on the Tuesday.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just see if we get somebody else to come in advance.
So you could argue that in those situations, the bully offer isn't even good for the bully because they're being tricked into it. They're being lured. When the listing agent knows, like, hey, I might have messed up on this price. Please bring us a bully offer. Because on offer date, I don't think we're going to have 15 offers. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and, the whole, bully or preemptive thing started when we were getting 10 and 12 offers on these listings, and everybody was super aggressive. Yeah. And this one person would show up and be like, well, I'm going to give an extra $200K, so I'm just going to give it to you on Thursday, right? But now we've gotten into this weird phase where that process is still happening, but the numbers aren't, right? So you're just kind of like, what's the point of it anymore? And how fair is it to everybody that's involved? And to me, I just think even from an agent's point of view, if you want to look at it that way, if you list a property and then you say we're open to preemptive offers, and so you list it on Tuesday and you sell it potentially on a Thursday, what sort of marketing have you done? How many people have you actually reached?
Exposure have
and
you
have
given
you given your client the proper exposure to get the most money? Whereas when you're listing at market value and you know that buyers are going to come through, and if it pops quickly, great, because you're at the right price. Then that's a different strategy to take, right? And you're going to market it a little bit differently. That is
the big difference. Yeah. When you're listing below market value, you need that exposure to jump up that number.
Get them to people.
When you know the market and you're at market value, you determine that it's okay. You get get somebody that's willing to pop early, perfect.
Great.
You've done your job well.
Exactly.
But you need that exposure at an undervalued listing.
Yeah,
right?
how else do you get the price, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Then it comes in at, you know, what you thought it would be or less than that, and you're like, well, the first offer is always the best offer, right? We might as well take it.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah,
really
can't
how
do
it's
that.
supposed to work.
Not serving anybody there.
So really, this is one of the top topics that is being reviewed by AREA. Is the
they've
proactive
submitted
offer,
it for review under the.
I think there's a couple key ones that we'll look at. There's others that are just essentially
there's 28 in total, actually. But
and some of them are just administrative in my eyes. The way they're saying it.
But I mean, the REBA Act needs to be.
It's 2002.
It's
I mean, we're in a
2002.
totally different
So
world
much has
right
changed,
now.
yeah.
And I think it came out pre 2000 or after 2002 slightly, but it was written in 2002.
But it was written in 2002.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think we've done a great job of going through all of that, and we'll keep everybody posted with some of the other changes that are coming down the pipe. Stay tuned to our social media pages. That's where we're going to do a deeper dive into some of the market stats. We're going to try and figure out where those sales are missing, and our average price was pretty bang on too. It was only up like 8,000 over last year. So.
Let's hope that there are sales missing.
Yeah.
Not just really wrong about this.
They're out there somewhere. We're gonna find them. We're gonna find out who's lagging. We're gonna point our finger at that segment of the market and be like, "Come on, condo market, Durham, what are you doing over there? Where's the sales?
Peel, are you leaving?
What's going on?" Exactly. So stay tuned. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us for our real estate morning show. I'm Dylan. This is Jen and Cecilia. And we will see you next time.